Let's go into the in-depth mailbag tonight, shall we? Kind of like an in-depth satchel, but we'll call it a mailbag. We covered a lot over the last couple of weeks, and we got tons of questions about things like homes collapsing at Rodanthe, the state gas tax, no tax on tips, vaping, food stamps, so much more. And we're going to go into all of those things in the coming days and weeks. But tonight, we have to talk about that one thing that kind of dominated the inbox, and that's cell phones in schools. We went in depth on this last week, and if you missed it, check it out on the WRAL YouTube page. You can watch all of our reports on there. And if you have some questions or comments, as always, send me an email, dan@WRAL.com. I read all of your messages. They are truly the inspiration behind this segment. Maybe your thoughts will inspire our next story or the one after that, so please keep them coming. Tonight's segment is inspired by two emails from two of our youngest viewers, two middle school students with some refreshingly nuanced views. Damari said, I am a middle school student, and although I think phones don't belong in class, they do belong in schools. With all the shootings and violence, us kids ought to have a way to quickly contact people. Thank you so much for that email. I really appreciate it. One of her cohorts, Sophia, wrote something kind of similar. I mean, she literally wrote it. She did it the old-fashioned way. She got out a piece of paper, she wrote down her thoughts by hand, and had her dad email us a photo of it. I love this. Sophia writes, I used to disagree with phone bans at school because I thought that phones were needed for emergencies, and yes, they are. Today, I agree with the phone ban because people have created necklaces and bracelets that have built-in buttons that you can push when you are in need of help in an emergency. When these life-saving accessories were created, they immediately took over the need for phones at schools. Sophia, what a great note. Thank you so much for writing in. What you're describing sounds a lot like Life Alert. Remember that old commercial, Help, I've fallen, I can't get up? Probably a little before Sophia's time. A lot of you others remember this, though. She is right. This technology isn't just for the elderly. There are similar devices like this for kids. We found this one for $4 at Walmart. So, Sophia, you are onto something here, because lots of other people actually messaged me talking about the idea of fighting technology with more technology. Barbara wrote in and said, I am the grandmother of twin girls who are in middle school. I gave them a Bark phone for safety purposes. These are pretty interesting. Bark phones can be an app on your phone or just an entire phone. It can block apps, browsers, social media, and monitor what your kids do on that phone. Others think that we hit the technology sweet spot in the early 2000s. Amy said parents should get together and decide to buy their children flip phones. This is called the dumb phone movement, and it's a real thing. It would probably be more of a thing if they didn't call them dumb phones, but what do I know? You do remember these, though, the Nokia phones. These babies are indestructible. You could pull them right from the pocket of your diesel jeans, throw them through the wall of a Sam Goody, and still use it to call your friend about J-Lo and Ben Affleck. Kind of weird that that last thing is still relevant. Nokias are still going strong there, though. They look exactly almost like the versions that came out in the early 2000s. There are influencers that go on YouTube and TikTok. They talk about the mental health benefits that they get from using dumb phones. The New Yorker and New York Times wrote think pieces on this subject. And while Nokia reported a bit of a surge in U.S. sales in 2022, they've since come back down to earth, dropping 19% in the first quarter of this year. So, assuming for now we stick with the pocket-sized supercomputers that we have on us all the time, many of you did have some other ideas. Mike said, have every student install an app on their phone that disables all other apps. So there is technology that does this. Parent Shield can block certain apps or turn off phone service at certain times of the day, like school hours. App Block is another one. It kind of does the same thing. In both cases, individual students or families would be on the hook to download and manage those apps. Eric had this idea. Why not just install cell phone blockers in classrooms or even school-wide? I suppose, he's right, cell signal jammers could work. Works pretty well for those Chilean crime rings stealing from homes all across the triangle. You should check out that segment. It's like something out of Ocean's 11. That's online, too. A teacher in Florida, though, actually tried this back in 2015, saying that his students were distracted by their phones. The problem is, using these cell phone jammers, well, that's illegal. And that teacher was suspended as a result. Not to mention, if you can't call 911 when that cell signal is jammed, it doesn't really help when it comes to safety. And we can't forget what Damari said. Phones belong in schools, and kids ought to have a way to contact people quickly. That was her message to us, the other middle schooler. And to be fair, that's not the only positive to having smartphones in the classroom. There are a bunch, plenty. We'd like to talk about that next, if you're interested, exploring the ways that educators do use phones for the right sorts of ways in the classroom. Let me know what you think about that topic. Send me an email, dan@WRAL.com. What do you think about phones in schools? What are the upsides other than safety? Tell me what's on your mind, and we'll go in depth.